Hello everyone, this is Leah Whitehorse, and in this recording I'm going to be exploring the astrology of August 2024. So this is a big month. There is a huge amount of stuff going on up there in the skies. Most notably is a connection between Jupiter and Saturn. This is going to be a square, and it's the first of 3 squares that Jupiter and Saturn will make in this particular series of squares. We are going to have a highly active full moon in Aquarius. The 19th of August is the day. It's like everything, it seems like everything is happening on that date, because that's the date of the Jupiter square to Saturn. We've got the full moon in Aquarius, and as you will hear, there's a whole other bunch of stuff going on around that time as well. We are going to have Mercury retrograde, just to kind of add a little cherry on top. So Mercury will be retrograde for the vast majority of the month. And overarching all of that, we will still have Neptune on that very final degree of the zodiac, hanging out on the anaretic degree of Pisces, 29 Pisces, which throws up a huge amount of confusion. We have no idea what's going on. Everything feels a little surreal. That's how it seems to me at the moment. I'm actually recording this on the 6th of July, so reasonably early. We have just had the elections in the UK, so now we have a whole new cabinet sitting in London, a new prime minister. Everything has changed overnight, and we don't know yet how that's going to unfold. And it kind of feels like there's so much in the atmosphere right now. There's so many questions and thoughts and hopes and dreams and wishes and fears and suffering and loss. And it's just all there in the air. And then we've also got Pluto hanging out on the 0 degrees of Aquarius. So this is also another critical degree, beginnings and endings, 0s and 29s in astrology. So the 0 degrees of Aquarius is acutely concerned with the future. And as I've mentioned many times before, Pluto in Aquarius is changing the future. We're trying to get control of what's going to happen here. But at some level, we also have to realize that we can't control everything. And therefore, we've got to work out, what is in our control and what isn't, and how do we apply our minds? How do we apply our thinking constructively in a way that is going to be transformative, in a way that is going to empower everyone, Aquarius, society. We want an empowered society. We want people to feel empowered, says Pluto in Aquarius. But the shadow of Pluto in Aquarius is, oh no, we don't want that. We don't want people to be empowered. We don't want the group to realize how powerful they are. So there are insidious ways and means for the shadow side of Pluto to work, or the shadow side of society to work, that undermines our efforts and tries to control us, tries to keep things under control. So this is all the background stuff that's going on. If we come now to the foreground, and the 4th of August is when we are going to have a new moon in Leo. So we're kind of starting off the month on quite a light note. This new moon is very lightly aspected, and generally speaking, with the new moon being in Leo, we know that we have some kind of new start here that is associated with our creativity, our creative self-expression. Leo is ruled by the sun, and the sun here is powerfully in its own sign. So we have some kind of spark, this idea that this is something that I could create in my life. And it invites us to be more playful in life. What do you wish to create? Who do you want to be? This is the sign that is associated with actors. So what is that part that you want to play? Who is the hero of your own story? And do you need to rewrite that story, flip the script, change things up? Something is seeded around this time, which feels very motivating and exciting because of the connection to Mars. I will be doing a much more in-depth reading of this lunation over on my Patreon and also for my Substack members as well. So we're kind of starting off easy-ish, but then on the 5th of August, Mercury stations retrograde. Not that Mercury retrograde is hard, it's there for a reason. Mercury is always trying to help us with these retrogrades because there is something that we need to discover. We need to go inwards. I will be making another video about this Mercury retrograde, again going in much more depth. That'll be available for everybody here on YouTube, so I won't cover everything right now. But just to get a flavour of this, Mercury is going to station at 4 degrees of Virgo, but it will go back into Leo through this retrograde period. And so what we're going to be asked to do here is to go within, to explore maybe how we are treating ourselves as far as our health is concerned, because Virgo is concerned with our health and our healing and being of service. You can't be of service if you're not feeling up to it. If you're not taking care of yourself, you can't take care of other people. So we have this prompt, this inner prompt, to start asking some questions about how things are functioning in our lives. This is the Virgo portion of Mercury retrograde. And then when Mercury goes back into Leo, once again, we're going to be asked to explore this creative side. So Leo energy. What lights you up from the inside out? Maybe for some of us, we've been feeling a little jaded or feeling like we don't have the time, the energy, the urge even to get playful with life and anything other than the work that we're supposed to be doing or the home stuff that we've got to be getting on with, the family matters, the duties, the responsibilities. Leo business can often get left behind because we get caught up in the adulting. And so when there is a strong Leo emphasis and Mercury is retrograde in Leo, then there is a need for us to reconnect with the inner child, because the inner child will help us to keep that flame alive, that flame of excitement, the part of us that burns to live and to have fun and to be excited and to just enjoy everything that life has to offer. So Mercury is going to be helping us to explore some of these themes. Now, also on the same day as Mercury stationing retrograde in Virgo, Venus is going to enter Virgo. So once she enters Virgo, Mercury then stations retrograde just 4 degrees away. So Venus is kind of interacting with Mercury as it stations retrograde. Venus in Virgo means that our relationships take on a very practical tone because Venus is associated with the heart, with what we love and who we love, what we're attracted to. And right now we're attracted to a job well done with Virgo emphasis. We're attracted to those little things that our partners do for us and the things that we do for them, the little tiny things that maybe other people don't see, the little note slipped under the pillow or the making of their sandwich for lunchtime, all these small things that we do for one another when we love one another, that add up to be a very tangible expression of our love for that person. So the little things absolutely count when Venus goes into Virgo. Now also I mentioned that Virgo can be associated with service, with work, with health. So Venus going into Virgo is also going to be interacting with all of these themes as well. So again, wanting to do a good job, wanting to feel as though you're a good colleague or somebody who is helpful in the office. It might also mean that you just want to feel better as far as your work is concerned. I just want to feel better, whether you work from home or work somewhere else. It's like, I just want to have better relationships in this place, or I want a job that I can actually put my heart into. That's also Venus in Virgo. Now, the shadow side of Venus in Virgo, particularly around relationships, I mentioned before about the little things count. But the trouble with this is that sometimes people can get a little bit nitpicky. So we start to notice every single tiny little thing that our partner does that slightly annoys us. And then suddenly it's just this whole big mess of things that are annoying us. So that's just the thing that we have to watch. And we can do that in other areas of our lives as well. We can start to feel so super conscious of things that are out of place because Venus is associated with aesthetics. So if there is a slight nudge to a picture that is not straight on the wall, it's that kind of feeling that we're walking around every single wall in the house, straightening all the pictures, straightening the curtains, straightening the things on the table, this kind of thing, perfecting everything so that it looks beautiful. And we can forget that actually sometimes a little wildness, a few flaws, a little bit of dust doesn't take away from the beauty of a place, an environment, or a person. So we have to be careful that we're not getting so caught up in this perfectionism that we're missing the beauty that is all around us, or indeed missing the love that is being expressed towards us. Now we stay with a conversation about relationships because on the 9th of August, Juno is going to enter Libra. So Juno was the Roman goddess who was kind of the queen of the heavens. She was Jupiter or Jove's wife. And so she was very, very important to the Romans. Now, her relationship with her husband is what she is most famed for in many ways, because her husband, Jupiter, was not always faithful. He loved to have lots of different women. He loved to go off chasing mortal women. But Juno, she would not take this lying down. She would often be quite vengeful. She would find ways to punish these other women. So she gave as good as she got. Juno going into Libra is very, very focused on these nuances in relationships. So Libra, of course, is the scales that's assigned, it's associated with relationships, generally speaking. Juno is marriage and contracts and what we agree to. So once Juno goes into Libra, we are very, very focused on what have I agreed to? What are these silent agreements, unspoken agreements that we have? And we can have these with all different types of people. Yes, relationships, our closest relationships, partners, husbands, wives. Those are the ones we often speak of mostly with the sign Libra. But we can extend it out because we're not all partnered. So we can extend it out to mean the relationships that we have with a best friend, anybody that we're working very closely with. Indeed, it can also be therapists. It can be anyone that we're working one-to-one with. It can also be our customers and our clients. So with Juno going into Libra, we are super conscious of these agreements and these contracts and what is spoken and unspoken in our relationships. And we're always seeking to find our balance to ensure that everything is equal. It's on equal footing. Juno will keep resetting that balance whilst she goes through this sign. And she'll be in Libra right up until the 3rd of November. We jump to the 14th of August. Now we are really starting to get into this incredibly potent period of time. This is when I would like to say it all starts kicking off, basically. Now, hopefully that is going to be something positive. But we also have to bear in mind the negatives, because what we have going on here is Mars coming in to conjoin Jupiter. Mars will make a conjunction to Jupiter in Gemini on the 14th of August. This conjunction will take place at 16 degrees and 40 minutes of the sign Gemini. So if you have anything around 16 degrees of Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo or Pisces in particular, then this is going to be a supercharged moment. Now, the mixture of these energies is really interesting because Jupiter is seen as a jovial planet. I was just saying about his name being Jove. So he's a jovial planet. We associate him with being the great benefic, the one who gives us all these gifts, who provides us with all these opportunities, the lucky breaks, the chances for growth, development. And in Gemini, this is like we have a big opportunity to make some really important connections, whether that is with other people or whether it is internally, mentally, in the mind, because this is a mind expanding influence, mind blown. You know, this is highly educational, Jupiter going through Gemini. But with Mars can sometimes inflame and Jupiter can sometimes magnify. So there's an edge to this Mars conjunction to Jupiter because we're starting to get some kind of story here that maybe there is indeed a big story. I'm just suddenly thinking about Gemini being a conversation. So maybe there is some kind of big story that just blows up. Mars conjunct Jupiter. Or maybe it's just something that happens really quickly, a really fast, big decision. That could be another way of looking at this. I get the impression of racing. I see race cars with Mars conjunct Jupiter in Gemini because Gemini can be associated with movement. It's ruled by Mercury, fleet-footed Mercury. Yes, I know Mercury is retrograde at the moment, but we still have the symbolism that we can work with. So there's movement, there's the engine of Mars. Mars can rule motors. And then Jupiter, maybe it's some kind of big car or a big truck. We have some kind of sense of a lot of movement is happening. And it is also brain stimulating, mentally stimulating. Mars conjunct Jupiter, 100 ideas or maybe 100 voices. Everything is speaking at once. And that is pretty much the same with the skies because as Mars is conjoining with Jupiter, it is activating the upcoming Jupiter square to Saturn. So Mars will connect with Jupiter. It will then square Saturn. That's on the 16th of August, the day before. By the way, I'll just briefly mention here that Mercury will go back into Leo on the 15th of August. So continuing that retrograde journey through Leo. So Mars conjoins Jupiter. We get some kind of blow up or a massive conversation. Something big is happening with Gemini themes. Gemini is associated with schools, education, mind, communication, connections, neighborhoods, cars, transport. All of these kinds of themes come in with Gemini siblings. So we have all of this activation and then Mars will square Saturn. So Mars square Saturn brings in some element of frustration. There's something big happening and we don't know how to stop it, or there's something big happening and it feels really serious, or there's something big happening and we really want to run with it, but we can't because there's a rule, Saturn, or there's something about timing, or there's a deadline. Something here is blocking the flow of what we want to happen. And so we carry that energy through these days as we go from the 14th of August, Mars conjunct Jupiter, to the 16th of August, Mars still conjunct Jupiter, square to Saturn. And then we land on the 19th of August, the date that I mentioned at the beginning, when everything is just happening all at once. So when I say everything, I mean the Sun conjunct Mercury. That is the midpoint of the Mercury retrograde period. That generally is a time when we get some kind of illumination. some kind of illumination about why this is happening, why we have been held back, delayed, why we have been questioning things, why we haven't been getting the answers. Something comes through. Mind is illuminated. Sun conjunct Mercury. Also on this date, we're going to have a lot of planets playing into this Jupiter square to Saturn, which is exact on this date. So Jupiter will be squaring Saturn whilst Mars is still close to Jupiter. But then we've also got Venus opposite to Saturn and squaring Jupiter. So that now makes this a very potent T-square pattern. And I'll just add in that we also have Astraea here as well. So Astraea is opposite to Saturn and square to Jupiter. So you can see it on the screen here, line after line after line. We're getting this very, very tight T-square pattern with the majority of these planets all on 17 degrees of their respective signs. Yes, Mars is a couple of degrees away, but you know, Mars is Mars. He's still going to be providing a lot of vigor and energy to this pattern. So we have Jupiter square to Saturn. I want to grow, I want to develop, I want to move things forwards, particularly when it comes to how we communicate with one another, how we connect with one another. This could even be speaking of publishing with journalism. It could be speaking about media, social media. But we also have to think about how it affects everyone. Saturn in Pisces. We have to have some limits. So Saturn in Pisces. Venus in Virgo interacting with Saturn. Venus opposite Saturn is often a feeling of, I'm not receiving enough love. I'm not receiving enough money. I'm just not getting enough. I'm feeling worthless. And with Venus square to Jupiter, there is this sense of, there is so much that we could have, but I feel as though I'm limited. I feel as though someone is holding back on me. So we got all of these complicated conversations happening. Astraea there trying to kind of bring in some sort of balance to the whole story, and also maybe bringing in some kind of spiritual justice that might be important, perhaps on the world stage, some kind of spiritual justice, or justice being seen to be done. That's the kind of energy that I've got as I'm speaking about this. So I kind of feel like there are very strong stories in play here that are very diverse. Thinking about Gemini, this T-square is pointing down to Jupiter in Gemini. So all of the complications, all of the tension between specifically Venus opposite Saturn, all of that tension is coming down to Jupiter, maybe sort of saying we need to talk about things more. We need to understand each other better. We've really got to get our dialogue figured out. But I kind of feel like because it is pointing to Jupiter in Gemini, and Gemini is a dualistic sign, then we might see that there's lots of different stories coming into play that are perhaps a little jarring at times. Now, the jarring also comes from the fact that, as well as all of the other stuff that I've already mentioned, still on the 19th of August, we're going to have a full moon in Aquarius that is exactly square to Uranus. So we're going to have the Sun square to Uranus that perfects on the 19th of August as we have this Moon-Sun opposition. So once again, we have another T-square, this time pointing to Uranus, which speaks of revolutionary change, freedom. Something is changing around our resources or around Mother Earth. And then with the full moon in Aquarius, we are looking at a culmination around themes that are connected with our political systems, around themes connected with our future, with technology, with how society is set up, with how society works. And I have to mention that this full moon is particularly vibrant in the chart of the United States. So I would imagine that whatever these big stories are that are sort of coming out, there would be some kind of connection to the United States. I'll just briefly show the chart here so you can see why I'm saying this. So you can see that the moon at 27 degrees of Aquarius is directly conjunct the moon at 27 degrees of Aquarius. So that is the natal position of the United States moon. Now, we've also got the transiting sun will be conjunct natal black moon Lilith. So there is something going on here which is suggesting some kind of issue around communications, I would imagine, because it's the full moon in the third house. Third house of a mundane chart, of a country's chart, is associated with transportation and communication. So again, we're looking at journalists and media and post and all the things that keep everything going in many ways. There could be also relationships to neighboring countries, because third house is traditionally neighbors, so neighboring countries. We've then got the ninth house, which is law courts. It's also to do with foreign connections, foreign international relations. So we've got some kind of issue with international relations, communications, but also something to do maybe with the courts as well, something that we didn't necessarily see coming with Black Moon Lilith there, but also Black Moon Lilith may be also connected with women's rights. So there's possible issues around there as well. Then all of this is being activated by Uranus, because I mentioned before that this full moon is square to Uranus. We can see Uranus there in the 6th house of the Sibley chart, the United States chart. And currently Uranus is squaring the moon in this chart. So that basically speaks about a lot of feeling, because the moon is like the public. The moon can be women, but the moon is also just the public. Uranus square to the moon is emotionally, the public are feeling very jittery. Uranus is, everything is shaking, especially in Taurus. So I mean, possible earthquake issues, maybe. I'm just going to throw that out there as well. But it could also just generally be that the political tensions, of course, I know that you guys over in the States, there's a whole big thing going on right now because you're coming up to elections. So it's very jittery, this Uranian square to the moon. But if we remember that what is happening in the skies is there for a reason, then clearly there is some important need for a change. Uranus square to the moon, a change of habit, a change of the way things have always been done. There needs to be some kind of radical shift. And also there needs to be some kind of freedom with Uranus as well. And the fact that Uranus is moving through the 6th house, the 6th house is associated with service, with health, with military, all of these kinds of things. So it kind of feels like everything is somewhat unpredictable when it comes to these matters at the moment, as far as the US is concerned. But this full moon is going to vividly highlight, I feel like, what the people want, because the moon is conjunct the moon. It's going to highlight what the people want and maybe what the people need, the people collectively. So it's a very dynamic picture. It doesn't mean it's something to be afraid of. It's just something to be conscious of, aware of, that there are a lot of radical shifts happening, and this needs to happen to create the necessary changes. So maybe this will illuminate the way and will show what needs to be changed or what needs to be dealt with. Some kind of information is coming through. Now, for all of us, of course, Jupiter square to Saturn is going to be an important aspect. If you look to your own chart to see where this is happening, then it'll kind of show you that wherever Jupiter is, this is where I want to expand my life. This is where I think things are going good right now. This is where I have a lot of hope. This is where I really want to kick it up a bit, especially with Mars conjunct Jupiter. I feel excited. I want to go large. I want to talk about this. I want to tell everyone about this. But then Saturn, in whichever house in your natal chart, is kind of saying, hey, slow down. Take your time here. Feel your way through this. Let your mind have a rest. Turn it over to the universe. Turn it over to the gods. Turn it over to your intuition. What is your intuition telling you here? Especially if you feel like your mind is running away with itself. Mars conjunct Jupiter around the matters of the house where it is happening in your own chart. So if that part of life suddenly seems very vivid, animated, over the top, which could be positive, negative, or somewhere in between, it's taking up a lot of energy, then the part of life where Saturn is traveling should help to just apply the brakes a little. And sometimes that's necessary because we don't want things to spin out of control with such potent energy in play. On the 22nd of August, the Sun enters Virgo. So this is Virgo season. And whilst the Sun is here illuminating this sign, then one of the questions we are asking ourselves is, how can I help? How can I help? How can I be of service? How can I improve things? What can I do to make things better? We could also be thinking about where we might need help, where we might need to ask for help. Maybe we need some kind of help with a health issue, or we need help at work because we don't quite understand how things are working, or we need to upskill. So we need to get somebody who is more knowledgeable than us and has the practical application, the practical knowledge, so that we understand what we need to do. So the Sun moving through Virgo is the time of year when we all get an opportunity to address our skills and our habits and our daily functioning and our health. And then we can apply that specifically to the area of life where the Sun is traveling through our own chart. So that's indicated by the house that it's passing through. How can I help? How can I make things better? How can I make things more efficient? How can I heal? What do I need to do on a practical level to help myself? Vesta also enters Virgo on the 25th of August. So we do have a lot of focus on this sign at the moment. You can see Vesta, the Sun, Black Moon, Lilith, Astraea, Venus, all hanging out there in Virgo. Mercury started its retrograde in Virgo. So yes, a lot of emphasis here. And Vesta is the goddess of devotion, the goddess of the hearth. She is associated with the Vestal virgins, and she is considered to be a priestess. She is priestess energy. So she brings in this concentrated energy and asks us to concentrate on this area. Focus here. That is what Vesta says. This is sacred. Your health is sacred. Your well-being is sacred. Being skilled and being of service, this is sacred. Vesta will be in Virgo until the 27th of October. Now on the 26th of August, Ceres will station direct in Capricorn. So whilst Ceres has been going backwards through Capricorn, it's been asking us to explore where have we been limiting our growth. Ceres is all about growth. She's kind of loss or gain. It depends on how she's aspected and what she's doing in the chart. But she can be associated, generally speaking, with the idea of Mother Nature, bringing to fruition all of our projects, all of our plans. And in Capricorn, certainly she wants to accomplish something. She wants to nurture a project until it is done, until it is complete, and it has brought some kind of reward to us. But in backwards motion, in retrograde motion, there has been a need for us to unpack what has been stopping this growth, what has been stopping this process. Maybe we've needed to care for ourselves better so that we can carry the responsibilities that are required in the outside world, in our career, in everything that we're trying to accomplish. If we're not looking after ourselves, if we're not feeding ourselves correctly, then it's really hard to be able to do all of those things that we need to do in adult life. So Ceres retrograde in Capricorn has been working on this. Now she stations direct and says, okay, we've got the stabilizers in place. We've fed you, we've watered you, we've got you ready. Now you can start working on these projects again. Now you can start to see some growth in this area of life. So wherever Ceres is traveling in your personal chart. As Ceres stations direct, Hygeia is stationing retrograde. So Hygeia stations retrograde on the 27th of August. She will station retrograde at 6 degrees 2 minutes of Taurus and travel back to 22 degrees 39 minutes of Aries. So Hygeia will be retrograde from the 27th of August through to the 14th of December 2024. Hygeia is associated with health. She is one of the health asteroids. She is connected to the idea of maintaining our health, and most often I associate her with preventative medicine. So she looks ahead, she sees what's coming, and then she puts measures in place to ensure that you are as protected as you can be from any kind of disease or dis-ease in the future. So with Hygeia beginning her retrograde in Taurus, the first question she will ask us is how connected we feel to our physical body. Are you listening to your physical body and what it is telling you? Hygeia will also ask us questions about security, whether we feel insecure or not, whether that is emotionally or whether that is materially. Hygeia is going to ask us to just check in with these matters, because this could be affecting our ability to prevent problems later down the line. Now, once she goes into Aries, Hygeia will then be exploring, how is your energy? How are you doing here? How are you doing here at the moment? Hygeia will sort of ask us to look at how much we feel motivated, how inspired we are, how much we feel alive and kind of thriving. Are you thriving? Says Hygeia. Hygeia will move into Aries, by the way, on the 18th of October. So for this month, for August and for September, it's the initial part of the journey through Taurus, questions around our values, our resources, and how well connected we feel to our physical body. These are going to be the topics that are uppermost as far as this Hygeia retrograde is concerned for the time being, until we get to the point where she goes back into Aries. And I will remind you about that when we get to it in October. On the 28th of August, Mercury will station direct in Leo. I also want to mention that on this date, we are going to have an opposition between Venus and Neptune. So I'm pointing it out because, generally speaking, the days when we have a stationing planet, particularly Mercury, it tends to be a little wobbly because we don't know whether we're going backwards or forwards, and everything's just kind of hanging in the air. And then this Venus opposition to Neptune, that is quite confusing. It's on anaretic degrees, so it's very acute. And there is this wishfulness that comes through. It's very romantic. Venus opposite Neptune is starry-eyed, it's drunk, it's like beer goggles. It's seeing what we want to see. We're seeing what we want to see and maybe not seeing things as they are. And as beautiful as Venus opposite Neptune can be and captivating, it's wonderful for spiritual work, for creative work, anything imaginative. As lovely as it is, it can be a little disappointing if we build it up to be something that it isn't. So just be conscious around this date, the 28th of August, that we might not be seeing things exactly as they are. So just give it a bit of time for Mercury to find his feet and for Venus to enter Libra, which she does on the following day, the 29th of August. There will still be a waning opposition to Neptune for a while, but the movement of Venus into Libra starts to give Venus some strength because she's now in her home sign, and it just starts to break down that opposition to Neptune. So now Venus goes into Libra, and once again we are back to the story of relationships. Venus in Libra is really looking for a peace. How can we have a win-win situation here, says Venus in Libra. What do you need? This is what I need. What do you need? Let's see if we can work together to make this happen. This is where my heart is. I'm happy if you're happy. So it's a really beautiful influence. Obviously, sometimes it can slip over into compromising so much that we kind of start to erase ourselves. But Venus in Libra, generally speaking, is a positive influence for our relationships and for ourselves, because we tend to look for the good when Venus is going through Libra. And when we actively look for the good in one another, then we tend to find it. We tend to see it. So when Venus is traveling through Libra and we get the emphasis on Libra beginning to build, we are getting a push to be heart-centered, heart-led, especially in our connections with other people, because things have been so fast and furious during this month with all of the Mars activation of Jupiter square to Saturn and all of that big T-square stuff and a very animated full moon. There's likely to have been some times where we have been quite heightened emotionally. And now Venus in Libra is saying, let's calm it down. Let's remember that we all have red blood. We are all the same deep down inside. We might not have had the same life or the same experiences, but we are all human and we all need to be loved. Venus in Libra. So on that note, I will love you and leave you. I hope you have found this reading for the astrology of August 2024 helpful. If you did, please do click a like and subscribe. I will put all of my links to my website, Substack, Patreon, and all my social media below. I will see you again soon. And in the meantime, I wish you many blessings on your path.